Hello, and welcome to the Shift Mastermind series. And today we're going to be talking about tactic number 8, standing out from the competition, seller staging strategies. So I'm really excited to have today as our panelists, Shannon Rose of the Rose Group. She has been a successful realtor for 16 years. She is an expansion rainmaker and has do you have any current listings on the market right now, Shannon?
We do. Dan and I have 2 and Kathy has 2.
Awesome. And
Yeah.
then congratulations on that. And then we
Thanks.
also have Denise Myrick of the Myrick Estates team. And Denise has been the one who's been in charge of making sure that the listings are beautiful and ready to entice the buyers. And I'm really excited to have her expertise. Actually, you're one of the top 5 teams in the office, right? You're ranked very high. So your attendance here is greatly appreciated. And then I also have Bryon Zapf, and Bryon comes to us from, he's going to be speaking from the perspective of like the luxury market and working in that market and what that's like and how to stand out from the competition there, because that's actually a very competitive market. And then we have Kim Cotton of Kim Cotton Design, and Kim brings with her her years of experience in the real estate industry. She also had a business as a stager early in her career, and then she's also a interior design. So she's going to bring her expertise on what it is that she feels that buyers are looking for and how to prepare the home for the market. So thank you guys for all being here today. I'm really excited. So standing out from the competition, what do you think, do you still get sellers who are asking whether or not they should stage? So Shannon, let's start with you.
Absolutely. I mean, I think sellers always have that question in mind around here, especially. And, one of the, call it, what am I thinking of?
I know, right?
Thanks. Gosh. One of the scripts, that I usually, use with that is, staging. I kind of pull out some statistics, which I'm sure Kim has the real defined ones, but it helps the home sell 15% faster for 10% more or 5% more, like depending on your market. Usually try and share that information with them, and then also just dumbing it down for them, because we as realtors, we have all this knowledge and we speak this realtor language, as I call it, and we need to practice speaking in their language to help them understand it, because sometimes we'll speak in a sentence when we really need to speak in a paragraph for them to buy into it, right? Mm-hmm. And so it's sort of like expressing to them the importance of spatial awareness, right? Like a vacant home can seem very small, and an overstuffed home, with too much clutter, can also feel very small. So staging becomes very important for spatial awareness, and for buyers who large portion of buyers are a little bit incapable of having vision. I mean, most people, the vision is just hard for people to see without physically being in front of them. So staging really helps them figure out, like, how would my couch fit here? And where would I put this, Mm-hmm. So anyway.
Yeah, no, that's great, because I know for me, I definitely have a difficult time when it comes to imagining what I could put in a room. So for me, having it staged really gives me the idea of how spacious it really is. Yeah, thank you. So Denise, do you want to comment on that?
Well, just to add to what Shannon said, in the way that we work with a lot of our sellers, and I would say half of them always question staging. but we just talk about the goals of what it is we're trying to achieve with it before we even get into the cost or whether or not they're going to do it. And it's to neutralize and appeals to a mass, buyer. We bring props, if you will, of pictures of typical houses as they are today, and people don't see the messes in their houses. And then also staged homes, and then also talk about, we're staging a lifestyle into a feeling. But then we actually get up and walk through the house. And the reason that's important, especially if there's a couple or if there's other family members, because the staging also serves a purpose of during an open house, not in COVID, but at other times, because people typically go to windows, closets, and they walk through the house. And we show that. And if there's multiple people, they then understand how constricted they could feel. It takes away from that feeling or lifestyle that you're trying to evoke with staging. So you want less is more, right? And you want to create that feeling. So if you actually physically take them through it, you use your props and show them differences, then a lot of times then they can kind of understand how important it truly is.
Yeah, that sounds great, right? It's like those before and after pictures of staging. It's so powerful, right? Like, and then I love that you walk them through the house so that they can see it from the buyer's eyes,
Right.
because that's so powerful when they do that. When I've done that with my clients, they're like, oh my God, I never noticed that before, right?
And it helps them understand what pieces they have to pull out. The other thing too is sometimes I've taken a picture real quick with my phone of a room, because most people look at homes, at least not now necessarily, but on their phone. Yeah. And so if they can actually see a room on the phone and they see all this, we have, well, I took everything down, but we usually have all this stuff in there, and it takes away from the room and it makes it look smaller. So it's almost like it's a real-time view of, well, this is what it's going to look like on a phone, and you're trying to sell that house or that room.
Yeah, and in the book, in the chapter for tactic number 8, it does say that a picture says 1,000 words, right? So I love that you actually do that. You actually take a picture of what it's like now so they can look at it, because we just aren't aware of things that we see every day.
And the big thing with that, just to finish, when you're neutralizing, natural light is so important. And people think they have good light, and most homes don't necessarily. And so when you do take that picture on your phone, you can truly see, like my room doesn't, but you can truly see then what they have light or not. And so I just think it's just important for people to actually see real time.
Right. I love that. And then you did mention too, right? And Shannon mentioned this too, was, we're selling to the lifestyle, right? We're selling the lifestyle of the home and what the buyer is anticipating that their life will be like. It may not be necessarily what their life is like now or what their seller's life is like now, but the staging sets the stage, right, for the lifestyle.
Yeah, and I'd like to say too, along those same lines too, Edith, is you want to depersonalize the home too, right? Because the home buying process is an emotional process, right? And so you want the home buyer to walk into that home and almost imagine themselves living there, like, oh, well, this is how I would live, and and this furniture sort of appeals to me. So I think the furniture and the staging and just the whole presentation, you want to appeal to the broadest base of buyer as well, and not be too specific. And I think Kim can probably talk to that too at some point.
On that
Can I say something?
Yeah, Ben.
My sister's the vice president of Michaels, and she, when she goes into a room, she says, "Where does your eye go?" And if there's too much stuff, there's not a focus point. So, and every room should have a focal point of what's trying to sell that room or whatever. And it's a very simple process, because you walk in, where does it go right away? And so less is more, obviously, but what are you trying to do? And it could be a picture, it could be a light, it could be a plant, but where does your eye go as you walk into the house? If it's all over the place, you're missing the point. And so I use that little kind of in my pocket all the time when I walk into a room and say, okay, what do we need to do with this space?
Yeah, I love that, right? Providing a focal space. So I kind of wanted to talk to Kim about that, but Shannon, did you want to say something real quick?
I can add it later.
Okay, sounds good. So Kim, you're the stylist here. So what is it that you do when you go in with either the realtor or the seller, and how do you look at the house, and what kind of things do you recommend or that you know that buyers are looking for?
So typically I like to understand what the situation is with the seller, whether it be a divorce, a death, if there's, you know, financial difficulties or whatever. I usually speak to my agent ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
I like to walk through the house with the agent and the seller and explain to them that I look through the eyes of a buyer as if I were a buyer. I start, when you talk about standing out from the competition, I always start from the street. I stand
Mm-hmm.
across the street and I look at the home with the homeowner and explain to them, like, I think it was Denise that was saying something about having natural light. A lot of people don't even realize that their bushes are, you know, covering the windows, or the trees are covering the windows. I always explain how important it is to trim back all of that stuff. Like in your case, Edith, that one we worked on, she didn't have any lawn, she didn't have any money,
Mm-hmm.
and she put grass down, and by the time that they were ready to get, you know, the house up on the market, the grass was coming back. So it doesn't have to cost a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to explain that to my clients when I go through the house. Depending on if the homeowner is living there, I do agree with you guys that less is more. I try to explain to them that we're selling the house, not their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important for anybody to come through the house, you know, and understand that they can see themselves living in this home. So
Mm-hmm.
I try to give them ideas, whether, you know, paint colors, changing the floors out if needed. It's all depending on budget, of course, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's pretty
So
much
what
what
you
I do.
do, so yeah, I love the idea that you brought up about curb appeal, because that is like the very first thing that buyers see, right? It's like, if the curb appeal is not attractive, or it is, you know, not taken care of, then they tend to think, oh, well, what's the inside going to be like, right? If they don't have good curb appeal, they're not expecting the inside to look
Right.
well put together, right?
Usually the agent knows what's going on in the market in that area, but typically before I go on a meeting with a client, I will drive around the neighborhood and look to see what is out there,
Mm-hmm.
so that they know that what their house is up against. So
Mm-hmm.
I try to know kind of what's going on in the neighborhood if I can, and explain to them, well, the house down the street, you know, looks like it has fresh paint on it, and I'm not sure how much they're selling it for, but it will make a difference whether or not somebody stops into your open house versus the other one.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Thank you. So Shannon, when you're dealing with sellers, and you know, what is typically like the first couple of things that you recommend that they do?
Well, I don't know if it's the first couple, but
Okay, well then go
um,
ahead and talk and kind of like walk us through your process, so that you know we're equipped with some scripts, and
sure.
you know how to talk to our sellers about this.
Absolutely. So I mean, I think it depends on the circumstance. You know, we've been doing a lot of pre-conversations about listing homes probably for a good 5 or 6 months. So ironic that this, you know, SIP and COVID stuff came up, and it is likely going to change our lives and our business and how we handle things. But like, if I'm in the house, I'm talking to them about editing, and I'm talking to them in that sense. Like, it kind of freaks people out, but I just share with them that, like, you're going to have to pack anyways because you're moving, right? You're selling your house, so you're moving. So let's just start pre-packing, and we're going to edit your that are here, and talk about that spatial awareness that I mentioned earlier. I also share with them small little things, like I'm in a room right now, Dan's office, that has all this like sports paraphernalia, right? And like, that's got to come down, right? We need, so I talk about stuff like that, diplomas, baby photos, wedding photos, sports memorabilia. And some of the things that I talk about, like for example, like with diplomas, I try and allow them to see both sides. Like, look, if you have a Harvard degree on the wall and somebody else isn't as educated, that may offend them. They may feel sort of like, oh, this house isn't good enough for me because I'm not that good, right? Or if it's a San Diego State University diploma, you know, degree on the wall, like people might judge you for being a partier or something, right? So these things just really need to come down.
Oh, you're a partier.
Right. Like, I mean, I the biggest one that I could think of is Giants and A's. Like, there's such a rivalry there. And, you know, you walk into a house that has Giants, San Francisco Giants paraphernalia, and you have an A's fan, it might just sort of turn them off, right? And
right. So that subconscious irritation, right? Because it is subconscious, then the buyer isn't fully open to really accepting the house, right?
Correct. And I mean, even like baby pictures, you know, people lose babies, like it happens. And so, and a home is where the heart is. And so it's like a husband and wife walk through your home and you have baby pictures sitting around. To one person, it might feel so cute. And to another person, it might. Anyways, those are some of the things that we talk about if we're a person.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, right? I think that's really important to remove all of the personal items. So Denise, when you're talking to your clients about that, what kind of scripting do you use when it comes to removing personal items?
Well, we go through the house with them and all personal items go. We actually, even if they're in the house, excuse me, our recommendation is to actually take everything out. And we have stagers that allow people to live in their staging, except when there's animals. That's always a question. But I think for a couple of reasons, and I'm sure Kim can talk to this as well, it was that whole lifestyle and feeling of walking through a house from the entrance. So you want the same palette colors throughout all the rooms. You want that whole feeling. So they're not distracted with personal things around. They're not stopping and going, because a lot of people, their rooms typically don't flow from colors, from furniture styles and things like that. And so you want this experience of just leading them through the house. And so we always recommend that staging, take all their personal stuff out, and then we'll stage the whole thing, and then they live in it. And then that way, and I always walk through with our stagers for a couple of reasons. One, because we research what the typical buyer is in that area, and it's not always the same, but the most people that would probably buy, whether it's a certain culture or whatever. I use, you know, you want that energy to flow through. I have a couple of really good references for feng shui, because if there's a certain buyer, you want to make sure that, again, you don't have a mirror facing the door, and so it's all going to direct that energy back out. You want to follow some basic guidelines, how the direction of furniture is, especially in bedrooms and things like that. So there's some things that you want to do to make sure you know who your buyer is. If it's a family and there's 4 bedrooms, you know, one bedroom you might have 2 twins, and the other one you'll have a double, and then you need an office, especially if it doesn't have a separate living space that you can put another office environment. So, you know, I like to work with my stager to make sure that we're meeting who most of those buyers are that are going to come through that home.
I love that. And I love that you, you know, that you consult a feng shui master, right? It's like, what is the, or the book. Okay. So it's written by hopefully a master that, well,
yes,
at least somebody who knows, right? Because, you know, it's like, for feng shui, there is a certain population that really does look at that. And
right.
So do you also like know what direction the front door is facing on those listings? Mm-hmm.
So direction, and, you know, and then if it's certain direction or certain, if we are painting the exterior of the house, you know, there are certain colors that you also want to appeal to. So things like that. And it's just being aware. There's, you know, everything's online. You can find that information, and just, it could make a difference, because I know with my buyers on certain cultures, there are some key questions that are always the first question out the get-go. So, you know, it's just being a little more knowledgeable on that area, which is good.
Yeah. Well, remember those questions, because I'm going to come around to that.
Oh.
So Bryon, do you have anything that you want to talk about with this, as far as like, you know, the certain rooms that you stage or how you present them?
Well, sure. I mean, I could, what I wanted to do is kind of go through a case study, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. You guys ready for a case
From my
study?
experience. You guys ready for that? All right.
Do it.
So, and so I'm going to go back a few years, and this is when I first got into new development. So I was working in that area, and but one of my clients that I was working with for new developments, he and his family had, I guess you would call it, had a spec home, a townhome on the Upper West Side in the city. And so he had it listed with another agent who is the #1 agent in New York City for townhomes. She's kind of like the townhouse queen, if you will. And so she kind of, in a way, churns and burns these things, even though they take a long time to sell. So, so I had the relationship with him, but at the time I wasn't, I was just getting out of residential sales, and he had already had this with her for 6 months, and he had a 1-year agreement with her, which is crazy when you think about it today. But a few years ago, if you had a townhome sale, and if you were considered a top agent, you could get them to commit to a year, which is crazy. So we had this listing with her for a year. And as my relationship grew stronger with him, I kept saying, hey, give me that townhouse, give me that townhouse. She's not selling it. And have you seen the pictures? Because now I have a pretty good relationship with him. And the staging was terrible. She just took furniture from wherever, I think a storage room somewhere. And I'm going to show you pictures if that's okay, because it really shows you a sort of a before and after. So so finally, towards the end, he says, yeah, you know what, when this expires, I'm going to give it to you. I haven't had any success with her. It's been a year. And yes, let's do something different with the staging. But now, see, she had provided all the furniture. He didn't have to pay for anything. So to convince him to invest in staging for this large townhome took a little bit of effort. But you know, when he started seeing all the samples of work and everything, I got him to buy into it. And it was an investment. It was 20 grand a month for this townhome. But if I can, I'll show you some before and after pictures, and then I'll tell you what the results were. Is that okay?
Yeah, let's see what a 28 grand a month townhome in New York City looks like.
So the townhome was, it's gonna work. Let's see here.
Share your screen?
Yeah, I'm trying to here. Shoot. Usually I can do this, but why can't I do it now? Ah, here we go. All right, so this townhome was listed for $13 million. Again, had it with this other agent for a year. And
yeah, just deny.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
That's okay.
All right. So can you guys see this?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the former broker agent, and this is the staging. So I'll just take you through here real quick. And you'll see, and pay attention to like some of the lighting up here, because we swapped everything out. We swapped out the lighting, we did painting, all of that. And what was interesting about this townhome too is that townhomes are usually a little bit more narrow. So this was about a 20-footer, and the rooms are kind of unusual. So to try to like stage this so that a buyer can visualize themselves living in it and using it can be a challenge sometimes. So you'll see like these little nooks here, back here, and things like that. So I'll just take you through here. This was a bedroom, probably the master, I guess. Yeah, fireplace there.
Wow.
Just kind of go through this quickly. Yeah, I mean, you can see the finishings were beautiful. This was all new construction. Again, a spec home that he did. Beautiful bay window here in the dining room that faces the street. Yeah, that's the outside.
And the staging doesn't have any pizzazz.
None. No. It has no personality, right? And especially, for a $13 million townhome, it just doesn't fit the personality of the property.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then these are her floor plans, and I'm showing that for you for a reason, and I'll tell you why in a second.
Okay.
All right, so then this is the staging. So that's that front room. You can see like we swapped out. Yeah, we swiped out the lighting fixtures.
It has more elegance. That price tag's an elegant price tag.
Exactly.
And
Yep. Matches the price point, matches the area, the personality of the property. There's all this different layering in here through the accessories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I noticed in the first picture that the chandelier in the living room still had the plastic covering on it.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah, this is so much more luxurious.
and even artwork, you can see throughout.
It just creates a lot of drama.
Wow,
right, exactly. That's right. And especially in this room, even right. Painting this wall black here.
Oh, there you go, Kim. That's her favorite thing.
Words now.
I know. I love it. I love a black wall too. Yeah, again, accessories, all of that stuff.
Oh God,
Beautiful.
what
The
a
mirrors too make
difference.
the
It
house
doesn't even
look
look like
so
the
much
same
bigger.
property. Right, yeah,
But putting
yeah,
those mirrors on the wall, Bryon, makes the
yeah.
room look wider.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good point. And you're right, Kim. I actually forgot about that. But this room, a beautiful room, but again, just the layout was a little odd. So yes, these mirrors helped with all of that, open up the space.
Beautiful.
And so,
Mirrors
at
will
first
also,
when,
oh, go ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, back to the natural lighting, if there isn't a lot of lighting, you can hang mirrors towards the window so it brings in the natural light, makes it brighter.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
It's gorgeous.
And that was really important here too, because it's a long townhome. So you have windows on the front and the back. You don't have any windows on the sides. So it was important to, bring in as much light as we could. Even accessories, like these small accessories in the, the shower here and things like that. It makes it feel almost lived in and not so much like it's a staged home. It almost feels like, not that we necessarily live like that with towels rolled up in our showers, but still it feels like,
what you were saying, Bryon, the difference before was it was showing it was a new home versus a staged livable home. And this gives it a luxury feel, but it's almost one step of, I would definitely put my towels there or whatever.
That's right.
Regardless if you do or not, but at least it adds that the finite little things that we use, right? The soap, the towels, whereas the other stager didn't do any of the accessories.
Exactly. And even, I love this kids room. And even the, the brand of the soaps and things like that, they match the property. So you would have maybe a higher end soap in something like this, or something aspirational. We talk about aspirational sort of, items that kind of add to this whole sort of, just attitude of the property. I said something about the floor plans. So even the floor plans that we did, and I know this isn't the class for it necessarily, but you can see even the floor plans we did, and even the photography, the way that we had it shot, is leaps and bounds from what it was before. So anyway, so after all of this, and the investment for the staging, and again, the seller was, because he had to commit to a 3-month commitment, so that's 60 grand. So 60 grand for staging, it's a little breathtaking a little bit. But after being on the market for a year, this went into contract in 3 weeks.
I love it.
Which was crazy.
Congratulations.
Right? Yeah, thank you. So, it's just a really good example, I think, of, and again, I'm not advocating that anyone spends 60 grand or 20 grand a month even, but it's really just the fundamental principles of staging, right? A sort of an A kind of approach over here where you kind of just throw things in and you don't really pay attention to it, or this approach B over here where you actually put some thought and, some care into the project. And the results speaks for themselves.
Yeah, beautiful.
Oh, that's so awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And it's, and it's obvious that, it's like the staging reflects the lifestyle that you're trying to,
trying to convey it, right?
Right. Exactly. So Ben, I'm so glad that you're here. Do you have anything you want to contribute about like staging and how it's helped you with the homes over there in Carmel?
The sad thing is right now we can't stage. I don't know if it is what it is up there, but you're not allowed to bring anything into a vacant home. But that being said, it's just based in line with what everybody said up there. So we had a $3 million house in the Highlands that we completely staged, and we took it over from somebody else, a major player. Her photos were terrible. Her staging did not match the contemporary home on the water, and we spent quite a bit of money to make it right. And within, I think it was 2 months, they had the market for 2 years, and we had it on the market for 2 months, and we had it sold.
Congratulations.
Timing, was it the marketing? You never know, but we know that we didn't blow it.
Well, so, we know it's the marketing, right? I think we
right.
can confidently say it is the marketing, right? Because the first time a buyer sees a picture on the internet or on their phone, whatever, that's like their first showing. So, when you stage a property and you have a professional photo, boom, that makes a statement right there. So, yeah, you don't need to be humble, Ben. We know you're you're top producer over there.
No, I've got a lot of bad stories of bad staging stories too, where we yeah, I've done it all. I've done both.
Yeah.
Not proud of it. I won't talk about that now.
We'll talk about that at happy hour.
Yes, there you go.
So Shannon, what are the most important rooms you think we need to stage?
I think the most important, well, for curb appeal is really important, far more important than worrying about the backyard, especially if you're limited on funds. But the most important rooms, I think, are the kitchen, baths, and of course, the main living spaces. Living room, dining room, kitchen, bathrooms. And if budget, I at a minimum, I always really think it's important to do like one bedroom. I personally usually just do all the bedrooms because it's $150 for an extra bedroom usually, for each extra bedroom. So if you've got a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, and whatever the baseline is for, the staging bill, let's call it $3,000. Then, the second bedroom is maybe $3,200, and the third bedroom, maybe gets you to $3,300, $3,400. So it's, for me, especially because so many people are looking at homes online first and making a decision on whether they want to spend their time to go and look inside of a property. I think the more rooms that you can stage, the better, but the critical ones for sure, kitchen and baths and main living spaces.
Awesome. So Kim, thank you. So Kim, when you go into a home and let's say that it's just your typical clients, the sellers have been living there for 40 years. And they are downsizing, they're moving out of the area, but they're kind of like saying to the listing agent that they don't want to stage. So I know that's when you would come in to look at the house to see what could be done. So what do you do to help the property be prepared for staging?
So I'm actually currently working with a client down in Morgan Hill, and the homeowner was the person that knew me. She contacted me. Her listing agent had told her that she needed to take every single thing out of the house and stage it. So I met with her. I went through the house, every little nook and cranny of the house. And I even didn't realize what a mess this house really was. I actually ended up agreeing with the agent, which was a good thing. And I convinced her to tear out all of the floors, redo a bathroom, paint the whole entire interior and exterior, pressure wash the whole backyard, trim bushes like it was like a jungle in the backyard. One of the things that they had was like a plant little sanctuary thing with the cover on it. And it made this one room just completely black. I mean, it was dark. You couldn't even tell that it was a big bedroom. So, so actually the agent called me after and thanked me because I actually convinced her to do more to the house to get what it was that she needed, because, the other homes in the area looked so much better. Yeah. So we did keep it on a budget though, because it was a lot. We painted every single built-in cabinet, everything was painted. New floors, new staircase, the whole entire house and all new lighting.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But usually I try, based on the situation, of course, like some people don't have the money to be able to do that. We did convince some people to do some of the work and get paid out of escrow.
Awesome. Thank you. I love it, right? I love it when it's like, I'm trying to tell my seller to do something and they're being so stubborn. So you can go in and then you're not, you take me being the bad guy off the table.
I'm the bad guy.
You're the bad guy. I love it. Thank you.
Fun.
Shannon.
I raised my hand because I saw this question from Kristen in the chat, and I thought if you don't mind, that it would be interesting to talk about it, because I suspect that Bryon probably has a totally different opinion, having come from New York, or has some ideas on how you could manage selling a home fully furnished. But my opinion of that, Kristen, is that it causes problems. Trying to sell, like sellers who want to sell their home with their furnishings in it, it creates problems for the lender. Like you have to sort of separate out a price for the personal property versus the real property.
Mhm.
And if you don't know that going into it, and you go to a listing appointment, a seller's like, well, I just want to sell my house fully furnished, and you're like, yes, sure, no problem. You may find out that you're going to run into some speed bumps along the way. And so I just try and share with them as much as I can about all of the services of how they can deal with this, right? So absolutely minimize the furniture that's in there so that they can maintain and stay living in there until the home is close to selling. And then as it gets closer to selling, offering up companies like we have a relationship with Keller Williams, has a relationship with not Goodwill. Oh my gosh, you guys, I think my brain injury is getting to me.
Yeah. And it's a Monday.
Yeah.
Sacred Heart?
Help me. Not
Sacred Heart.
not
Is that right now?
Is it the movers?
No, it's
Salvation
like
Army?
a Goodwill.
Salvation Army?
Salvation Army.
Salvation
Thank you. Anyway, so like Keller Williams has a relationship with Salvation Army, and they actually will take more things through our relationship with Keller Williams than they typically do. And we, they even have like a little flyer or little business cards that you can put in your listing presentations, sharing with them, good haulers or, got junk kind of people, and just recycle for the refrigerators or items, computers or whatever it is. But I really think, at least my experience, minus some new construction, that was like the main oh my God, this is so embarrassing. The main house that they show, to sell all the other houses.
Yeah, the model home. The model home.
Model home, yeah. With the exception of the model home, I've sold a model home with all the furnishings because it was the model home with like top-notch everything. And we actually just ended up, and that was, the seller was adamant about it, and we ended up just selling. We had a couple stagers come out and take what they didn't want, and they sold it to the stagers. So
That's
okay. Thanks, Shannon. So this situation is, it's a vacation home. And so the furniture is it's like a year old. So, they're hoping that they just don't have to deal with it. And if someone is buying it as a vacation home, that they'll have everything there. I mean, they want to sell everything, like the dishes, everything. And so I guess there's more I need to think about in this process, because if someone doesn't want all of it, then what do I need to do? So
go ahead, Denise.
What I was just going to interject. So we've had a couple of homes, high-end homes that they're relocation and they're going across the United States or international. And so they're just getting rid of as much as they can. We do separate. We do say in the comments that furniture is, purchasable, but we separate it from the get-go. And so what it helps is then when we're negotiating, and we can throw that grand piano in as a negotiation, which we actually did on one. And, that was like, oh, that's awesome. So, I mean, we use it then to throw things in, but we let people know that furniture, because a lot of those times, like probably your vacation home, some of that furniture is kind of custom to that area and it fits very well, whether it's the colors, whether it's the size and things like that, especially like in a theater room. They want all TVs fit certain rooms, and a lot of times you just don't even want to take TVs, but surrounds, all these kind of things that fit that home and fit that particular room. So, but we put it as a negotiating item in the end, and most people end up taking what they want, and then the rest we either sell to stagers or then consignment or Goodwill.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's a good point. And then the stuff too, I would just add into the stuff that you do donate. I always look at it as a tax write-off. if you don't want to go through the hassle of selling it and all of that, just donate it, I say, and just get the tax write-off.
Yeah, totally, right? So, I want to know, like, do you guys have any stories that you want to share about what it's like when you go into a home before you're ready to stage it, or like what some of your buyers recognize, right? Because we know that, there's overpriced homes, there's properly priced homes, and if it's properly priced, then that means that they feel like they're getting their money's worth, and the staging definitely helps to increase the value in their eyes. And then when a home is considered overpriced, that means that even with the staging, the buyer doesn't feel like the asking price is it. So I kind of want to know what, and this is just for fun because I'm thinking of a property that I had taken my buyers to, and they hadn't staged it. It was all old. It was vacant, no furniture, and it had purple shag carpet. So the nickname of that home became the Pimp House. So whenever we talked about what we saw on tour or neighborhoods, when we referenced that neighborhood, it would be like, oh yeah, that was the one we saw before, the Pimp House. So I'm just wondering, have you guys, do you have any kind of stories to share of like some interesting ones? Denise?
Well, so one thing we really didn't dive into, though, we did a little bit, but was budget. And so budget feeds into whether or not people stage or not. And so both buyer and seller, and interesting enough, just recently we got into contract 2 days ago on one in Fremont. While the house was not old, I mean, it's a fairly been remodeled except for the kitchen. And knowing that going in, and what I've done in the past, is I go on, usually House is the website I like to use, but I find something similar, whether it's the layout of the kitchen, for ideas. So this is like putting staging into my buyer's mind of how to work with what exists or to do a remodel. And I gave 2 examples to them, one with the current layout and what they could use. And, as close as you can, because sometimes it's hard size-wise. And then gave some other ones, given just the space if they want, and knowing them what they want, and allowing them to see that there's a lot of things that they could do with it as pre-exists today and just kind of cleaning it up, or as, if they want to just gut it. And then there's some simple things that aren't, too far on their budget to blow them out of the water. But I've done that with under stairwells. They have a lot of great examples. And even when I list them and, my sellers can't do everything, then I at least have bids and I have pictures in the binder so that buyers coming in can see, oh, that's what I could do with that space, because we didn't necessarily stage it or do anything with it. It just helps both parties, right?
Mm-hmm. So does anybody have any questions right now? Thank you, Denise.
I actually do.
Okay, Kim.
I'm just curious as to, because I'm going to add to my portfolio of things that I'm offering to my clients. And of course, I love working with you real estate agents. So I'm curious as to how many of you have used virtual staging versus an actual staging. And do you find that it's, something that I'm looking into actually learning how to do it. So I'm curious as to what your feedback is with regards to that.
Denise.
So we used it obviously just recently on some new listings that we had, and we went into contract on one. We only virtually staged 4 rooms, and this gets back to what we talked about, what Shannon was talking about, which rooms we do. And then when I put them in, so my e-flyers had the virtual staging on those rooms, but in the MLS would have the picture of the staging and then the picture of it not staged. So people understand that it is staged, because the staging, virtual staging, the sizing sometimes doesn't fit. But so working with it, I think, was good because the house needed some work as well, but it did give a good visual of it. We did paint it, and so it did help. I don't know, I lost my train of thought there. It helped budget-wise. I think these folks would have probably gone down that path anyway, so it might even be good to just know how to use that tool. Oh, what I was going to say, and so on the second house that we did that's currently listed, we were supposed to stage it, but then our stagers had to pull out because of the SIP. So we staged the living spaces, but what I really felt was important is staging, because we didn't have anything on the outside. And so the backyard, and because we're in California and everybody's always wanting more room anyway, we created another living space outside. So I did outside, the living space is formal and regular, and then I think one room upstairs. But I think it's good to kind of add to it. I don't find the value in virtual staging every room. I think just the main rooms are what's important. And then if you need to add to an appeal on an exterior, that would be my recommendation.
And I agree with that too. I think that's a good point that you made, Denise, too, is we used to do like exterior spaces, terraces, I don't know, rooftops, balconies, or backyards, things like that. I think that adds some value too. On the interior, I think it's a good option if you're not able to actually stage. And I would say too, it's you want to pay attention to the quality of the virtual stager. I think you know, obviously better quality is just going to look better, and
we
increase
added
engagement too, I think.
Yeah, sorry. And we added the room sizes in all of them, so people understood. Because again, I agree with you, Bryon, that some of them, they're force fitting. I don't know how it works, but they're force fitting that couch in, and so it makes the room look a little bit different than what it's probably supposed to. So if we include then the measurements, and at least people hopefully can understand it's really lots smaller.
Yeah, it's a good point.
You can also maybe use it as a tool to convince your client to do some of these things, because the clients don't obviously see what they could do with the space to begin with, because it wasn't like that in the first place, right? So if you could come up with a quick virtual stage for your client and say, look, this is what we could do, and this is how much money it would cost, and we could do it in this amount of time and get you more money on your listing, then we could also use the virtual staging for that as well.
Well, also in this time and space, I don't know what it's like up there, but as I said, we can't show homes if it's occupied. So the virtual staging is something you almost have to rely on. I've also used it for new builds, you know, houses and so virtual staging for that as well. But it's put that in your portfolio and be able. It's going to become more valuable as you move.
I think so too. I agree with that.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kim, I've staged a lot of homes virtually, especially in 08 through 2010. When I was doing a lot of work on short sales, and that was long before really anybody was doing much virtual staging, but I did it because I understood the value of staging and how much it could help the home sell. But I also wasn't willing at that time, you know, to pay for full staging, especially short sales were, you know, they could take months. So we did virtual staging then, and I've done it occasionally here now. Recently, it's always been on a vacant home. I've never done it on an occupied home. And the vacant home, I bought easels at Office Max, and we printed like the pictures of it being virtually staged versus not, as Denise mentioned. And we posted them in that individual room so that they could kind of see the difference, because you're standing in the room that's blank and vacant, but then here's the picture, not just for online. And I found that really helpful.
That's awesome that you did that.
Shannon, did you say easel?
Yeah, we bought like these, they're easels that break down into, they're about this long, the little sections, maybe a little longer. They're, and they break down like 3 times. So, and then they just go in a bag. I think they were like $25 a piece at Office Depot. I literally bought them in the one right there off of Larkin in Los Gatos.
Sorry, so I know what you mean now. Sorry.
Yeah, and then we had them also print the foam board, you know, print the picture on a foam board and then place the foam board on the easel in that room.
Oh, that's nice. So that it's not something that's like taped or glued to the foam board, but it's the actual foam board, so that it looks very, very professional, right? Very classy, actually.
And you can do that for low cost too. It doesn't cost a lot of money to print.
Oh, yeah, they weren't very expensive.
It doesn't cost that much. Yeah.
Yeah,
I used to do that a lot too.
I did it for a property in downtown San Jose recently on 9th Street. If anybody wanted to look it up. But those were virtually staged photos for the entire Victorian home, and then we had the easels inside. So So if you looked on MLS and saw the virtual stage photos and then went to the property, it wasn't just this blank space.
Right.
It helped
Great
you
idea.
go back to those pictures.
Great idea.
Yeah, that's
What's the
great.
address?
And I know that Cindy Sanchez Singh currently has a listing that's virtually staged right now. Does anybody else have any questions that they want to ask our experts here? Susanna?
Go ahead.
Hi, I don't have a question per se, but I do, I follow Kim Cotton Designs, and I found one of her posts that, I mean, you really didn't have to say anything about it, just visually in terms of staging and cleaning up the home, says it all. And I don't know if you want to share that. I do have it on my screen right now. I think everyone should see this because it's really cool. It goes from, it's not technically a hoarder house, but it is like, it's really just like things are everywhere. And then what happens when you even paint the cabinets. Can I share my screen really quick? I have it right.
Yeah, let's do it real quick.
Okay. There it is right there. See the before and afters?
You're not sharing yet.
Oh, sorry. Oh, darn. Okay, hold on. I got it. Okay, now does it say I'm sharing? I have it right there. Can you see it now?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, we'll send it out. I don't know, for some
Well,
reason.
when you do share, does it allow
wait,
you?
it says share here. Okay, I got it now. Hold on. Sorry. There it is. See it?
Oh,
One of them's Shannon's.
Love that.
You see that? That was awesome.
That's great. Love it.
Yeah, what a big difference, right? And so Denise,
Side by side. Yeah.
Oh my
yes,
gosh,
so
that bottom one of Alameda de las Pulgas, huh, Kim?
Yeah.
The bottom left and bottom right. Oh, what a difference. That was amazing.
Amazing.
Mhm.
And we did that on a major budget. Actually, both of them were major budget because the people didn't have the money or didn't want to spend a ton of money. But yeah.
I thought that was the coolest. Thank you, Kim.
Thanks.
yeah, that's
Susanna.
great. Thanks, Susanna.
Yep.
Jelaine, you have a question.
Yes, hi everybody. Real quick question. So these before and after shots are so great, and I was just realizing that I want to start doing that. But we're obviously demonstrating the value of staging and what we do to help people get their property prepped for sale. Do you ever run across someone who might be sensitive about you photographing it in its worst state? Like it's a personal, like how do you ask your clients, hey, we're going to do before and after shots. Can I take a picture now? Do you ever run across someone being offended?
It's a great question.
Mhm.
Are you asking me?
I know I have it.
So I could say, I think the best way to handle that is when you're taking the before photos, in most cases, I am taking I'm taking photos when I walk through a house so that when I get back to the office, like I can remember things for writing up my marketing description and things like that. And so usually when I'm taking those photos, I tell the seller that I'm only taking these photos for my own self. I'm going to use them, to remember your home when I get back to the office, et cetera, et cetera. And then we go through the repairs and clean up, and then their home sells and it looks amazing. I mean, often when you do this with sellers, they're like, they have a funny conversation with you. They're like, I don't think I want to sell anymore. My house looks great.
Right.
Why didn't I do this before? And so, I mean, it happens a lot, right? And of course, you have to remind them what was important to them about selling. But after the fact that you're in contract and they've gotten the money they want, and asking them permission to then utilize those befores, usually they just don't have a problem with it. I can't remember the last time that somebody said no to that. So I think that's just, for me, I personally think it's a timing thing, but it just depends on your style. I mean, I'm such a high S that I'm very sensitive to other people's emotions and have intense empathy. So I think like that's where my behavior might be different than other people. I don't know.
You're great. Your clients love you. So we are almost coming to the end of this, and I just wanted to, thank everybody here for, talking about staging and the importance of, getting ahead of the competition. And so basically the bottom line is, even though we're in a shifted market, the main thing for our sellers is for them to, start packing anyway, right? Like they're going to be moving anyway. So get that mentality, that psychology that it's no longer their home. And then the importance of staging is, for the buyers to have the neutral base, so that when they look at it, they can come in and recognize what the lifestyle is that this home affords. So, let's get a closing statement from each one of the panelists, and I'm going to include you in this too, Ben, so be prepared. So, Denise, let's start with you. What would you guys all like for people to leave this mastermind with?
Oh,
I don't. She always asks these big questions.
At the end. And you know my personality. I have to think. I'm not.
I know,
Okay.
I'm the same.
You want me to come back to you?
Take it back to me.
All right.
I have something I can say real quick.
Oh, you do? Okay, Bryon.
Yeah, just real quick, just because I got to hop to something else right after this. I would just say real simply, in a shifting market, or when the market changes a little bit, I think marketing and spending money on staging becomes even more important. So I would say don't, of course, within reason, because we all want to watch our expenses, but don't think because of a shifting market, I'm not going to invest in staging or invest in marketing, because that's the time when you actually need to definitely do those things and be in those spaces. So
wonderful.
That's my
Thank
advice.
you. Thank you.
And I got to run, but thanks
What
everyone.
he said.
Yeah,
Along those lines, be creative. There's
Yeah.
so many ways to be creative, and you just have
That's
to
right.
think out of box. Talk to your, all of us, and just getting great ideas, because we all love to share. And so just be creative in working with your client, and let your clients know it's going to be okay, and we'll get through it.
I love
That's
it.
right.
Thank you.
100%.
Thank you. Kim.
Ditto.
Okay, cool.
Staging's a must. I mean, it's an absolute must, whether the person is living there or you're bringing in all new furniture, you have to do it. It's a non-negotiable as far as I'm concerned.
Right. Ben, you're muted. You're muted.
Can't hear you.
There you go.
They're stressed, and they get it. And I always say you're hiring me for two reasons. One is to market, and two is to negotiate. Is part of staging, but you still have to live there, and you need to be comfortable. I get to tell you what will work and what will help you sell your house more quickly and for more money, but you can always say no to whatever you want. I mean, it's because they're stressed, and they're saying, oh my God, I got to move everything out. And so it's, and I always want people to like me. So I want to leave knowing that they were happy with whatever I told them, whether they choose me or not. But that's what I do. Is okay, the professional, and I always want to bring in somebody like Kim who kind of gets me. I'm not the bad person. This is somebody who does it professionally. So I always have a stager or two that is in my pocket, and we set that up separately. Anyway, but they have to. But if they're still living there, you got to let them know you're still going to live here, and you still have to be comfortable. So what do you need here that makes you comfortable? And then we'll start there, and then move on.
I love that. Thank you, Ben. Shannon, what are your final words of wisdom?
Mine was what Bryon said in my little,
Bryan's up there.
Bunch
Bryan's
I know. That's great. That's great. You guys are so wonderful. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you giving all of your words of wisdom and your contribution to this mastermind series. Thank you everybody who attended today and participated. I hope that you're enjoying this series as much as I am. During this shift in the market, it's a great time for us to really sharpen our skills. And so that's the intention of these masterminds. So thank you, everyone. Have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Edith. Bye.
Bye.